when. The times synchronicity show up in our lives can be A. When we desperately need them to, B. When we ask for them, C. When we are alert to subtle events, D. Randomly and entirely unexpectedly. Coincidences can happen at any time, but I have found that they are more likely to happen at some times than others. In the same way that some people are more sensitive to the phases of the moon than others, synchronicity does seem to occur during times of instability. There are times when coincidences are more likely to happen than others. More accurately, there are times when we are more able to perceive the event, data, sign, or symbolism and interpret it as a coincidence. I have noticed that seemingly very weird, extreme synchronicities often show up when we are in a dire place in our life. At times when there is a disaster about to happen, during a time of extreme stress, and especially when the future is uncertain, or maybe we're more likely to notice a series of fortunate events during a time of high drama. Sometimes we can be happily plodding along, not expecting anything out of the ordinary, and voila, there it is, just what we needed, as a strange coincidence to jolt us awake, a prod from the universe. The universe is asking us to wake up to the possibilities of events, happenings and people in our daily life. You never know what is coming around the corner, and the universe is full of infinite... How is it said that, Wayne Dyer? None of us know enough to take the negative view on things. Pessimism. None of us know enough to accept the pessimistic point of view. If you tune in to the universe, the coincidences will flow your way more frequently with more meaning, and you will wonder how you ever managed to ignore them. I dare say coincidence is an almost impossible subject to quantify, mainly because the act of looking at something changes the thing being looked at. Is it possible that people who are expecting coincidences to happen are having more of them? It seems as though the universe does have a right time and a right place. There is a destiny unfolding. Although I have spent a lot of time studying astrology, I haven't found anything in people's personalities which relates to their birth charts or death charts. I have tried. The closest thing I have found is that many people do seem to have major changes during their Saturn return, which generally most people only have twice in a lifetime. Some people live long enough for a third Saturn return, and maybe as people will be living longer, they will have a third Saturn return to look forward to. You know, the sort of change, the life review, taking stock of where you are, where you're going, perhaps a divorce is on the cards, change of career, a move of house, a change of country, a baby, a commitment, sometimes the death of a close relative or parents. This question of when has also reminded me of a statement by Esther Hicks. One of her mantras that she often uses: you can't get it wrong, you never get it done. And that statement is supposed to make you feel better, I guess by letting you off the hook, if that makes you feel better. Of course it does let you off the hook, unless your emotional state is hovering somewhere around futility, and then all it does is make you feel like there's no point in trying to achieve anything, because there's always the next task to complete or goal to achieve. From a place of depression, this is just a reminder that life never ends, and from a state of optimism, this feels like there's always something to look forward to. It does just depend on your point of view. I do believe that you can get it wrong. You can get it very, very wrong. And you can live with the consequences of being so mistaken. You can learn wrong. From a philosophical viewpoint, if you've learnt from it, then was it really a mistake? Or did you just have a costly life lesson? If you hadn't made that bad choice, if you hadn't taken the inappropriate, not recommended road, you would have missed that lesson or experience. If you learn from other people's mistakes, you can save yourself a lot of pain, but you do also miss the lessons and the satisfaction which comes from gaining your own life experience. I wouldn't recommend life experience at all costs, but I can see how, from an extremely optimistic viewpoint, you can paint a positive narrative in order to be able to cope with the truth of the matter. You may have made some humdinger mistakes, but they were your mistakes. You may never get it done, but would you want to? Would you really want to complete the game of life, leaving you free to do absolutely nothing? And then I've got a little coincidence story, the falling baby story. As reported by Time magazine in 1938, Joseph Figlock, a local street sweeper in Detroit, Michigan, in the United States of America, was walking down the road minding his own business when a baby fell from a fourth-story window. The baby struck him on the head and shoulders. They were both injured, but they both survived. The following year, a 2-year-old fell from a window again breaking their fall on Joseph Figlock as he was walking underneath. Again, they both survived. That's incredible, isn't it? Now my thing is, what was it that prompted him to go out at that exact moment, that exact time? Have you ever been gripped by that fear? I've just got to go and get the pint milk now. And then you go out and you bump into a neighbour that you haven't seen for 5 years. Right? It happens. Pay attention to your hunches. See, recognise when they need acting on. Take care. Bye for now. Why? Why does this happen? Deepak Chopra. I do not believe in meaningless coincidences. I believe that every coincidence is a message, a clue about a particular facet of our lives that requires our attention. Aha! See? As an intelligent person who also believes in coincidence. How many times have you heard someone say, there's no such thing as coincidence, everything happens for a reason? There must be a reason for coincidence, right? In which case, why do coincidences happen? What is the purpose of coincidence? Laugh with me, dear reader. I've sorted the reason for mysterious coincidences into 6 categories. Guidance, rescue or protection, warning, destiny, a reminder, upliftment. I found the most common of these reasons is for guidance, whether it is to confirm which direction you should go, where your next steps are, whom should you go to work for, or which relationship will be right for you. Questions that the universe answers for you by offering communication in the form of coincidence. Guidance for decision making when you are unsure of which path to take. Guidance in literal ways. You can literally be guided by signs from the universe, not just metaphysically in relation to your life choices, but also in order to put you in the right place at the right time to receive ideas and inspiration, or to meet up with your latest brilliant opportunity. Guidance. Alice, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? Cat. That depends a good deal on where you want to get to. Alice. I don't much care where. Cat. Then it doesn't matter which way you go. Carol. 1865. Oh, I've noticed another error in this book. It's so annoying. Got an exclamation mark. I've read this book before I had it printed. I've noticed a quotation mark that shouldn't be there. Isn't that annoying? This is the point of me reading the book. This is the read through. Literal. I have read this through so many times, but to still spot an error at this stage of the game is just irritating. Continuing with the guidance. See coincidences as signposts on the journey of life, showing us whether the path is the right or wrong direction for us depending on where we want to be from the place where we're landing. Confirmation you are on the right path. Signs to serve as confirmation to keep heading in your current direction, lining you up to experience the coincidence for no other reason than to confirm you are on the right path. Sometimes they're confirmation of a new path. Signs that have nothing to do with what you are thinking about for your material goals in life. Nothing to do with what your personality wants. You have a higher aspect calling you over to look at this. Over here, calling you over, change direction. Walk this way, come this way. Guidance to let you know that there is another path. Sometimes guidance can be in the form of clarification of which path to take. When you're feeling lost or confused, unsure of which path to take, help from the universe for you to choose the best path for you. The sign itself doesn't cause you to make the decision, but how you feel in response to the sign is what you need to be looking at. It is an old therapy tool. If you're having trouble making a choice of 2 paths, pretend you have made the choice of the first path. How does it feel? Then pretend you've made the choice of the second path. How does that feel? You will know from how you feel which path you need to take. It's the same with signs and coincidence. Trusting your inner feeling will help you to make the right decision. And then there's confirmation you're on the wrong path. An interruption signal. Something will happen to alert you that you are heading in the wrong direction. You could be heading for a fall. Rescue or protection. These rescuing events happen in various degrees of severity. Everything from protecting you from having something ruin your clothes, like your alarm not making you late for work as you're walking past a house painter who drops a tin of paint which would have splashed on you if you'd been on time, right through to rescues which seem miraculous because they are life-saving. With the internet at our fingertips, there are a whole host of stories out there which do the rounds on YouTube pretty much daily. The rescues, which have strange coincidences because of the relationship between the people involved, do tend to gather the most momentum. News of these events are the most likely to go viral. What once would have meant that everyone in a town would have heard about it has now spread to a global audience. It can also happen when people find themselves in need of less dramatic help, such as having a car stuck in the mud, only for a farmer to drive by on a tractor just happening to be able to help. Test the universe for yourself. Put something useful in your bag and see how long it takes for someone to need it. Something like a plaster, painkillers, some tissues, something that people often find themselves caught out by not having one. I found that if I carry a spare plastic bag and a packet of tissues, I tend to see people drop their shopping on the floor in front of me, and voila, I'm able to produce my spare carry bag. If I have tissues, guaranteed I will come across someone crying, someone who has an insect in their eye, or someone in need of my rescuing tissues. Esther Hicks tells the story of how she used to arm herself with a coat hanger in case someone locked themselves out of their car. She would see people all the time in need of her coat hanger to break into their locked car. It wasn't until she let 3 people into their locked cars in one day that she realised she needed to stop taking the coat hanger out. Her belief in the law of attraction is that she was putting herself in the right place at the right time to be able to use the hanger. If she didn't have the hanger on her, she wouldn't be the person lining up with the person in need of it. If you do take to carrying a first aid kit about, be prepared for the consequences. Exploding church story. I know, it does sound like the cue for a joke, doesn't it? But no, this really happened. In 1950, every single member of a church choir was running late for their weekly choir practice. Every week on Wednesday at 7:20 p.m, the choir met for practice. Even the choir director was running late. At 7:27 p.m, Wednesday, March the 1st, 1950, the church did, due to a natural gas leak. Westside Baptist Church in Beatrice, Nebraska blew up. Not one soul was harmed because all 15 members of the choir were running late. And what are the chances? Warnings are also given by way of coincidence. If only we are aware enough and with enough belief to be able to accept the warnings, understand and interpret their meaning. Often the universe helps us before we make all sorts of mistakes. How many stories have you heard about disastrous weddings which turned into disastrous marriages? Thunder and lightning on a wedding day caused flooding, and really should have halted the wedding, but the vicar and the guests all waded through 2 feet of water as if to insist the ceremony take place. People say I should have known, all the signs were there. Warnings are brought to us about impending disaster, death, and even poor decisions. Once you have strengthened your commitment to accepting there is a higher source of self, of which you are, it does become easier to heed the warnings, pay attention, and listen to your own guidance system. Destiny. Synchronicities which are going to happen regardless of what is happening for us in our lives. Sometimes coincidence happens because fate is knocking on the door, and often this type of coincidence has an extreme transformational effect on the person who is having the experience. When coincidence has a profound effect on our lives, acting as a catalyst for change, it can feel mystical, and the whole experience can leave us with a feeling that something has happened to us rather than through us. Taken by an event, we entered a zone where our thoughts, feelings and actions just went through the motions in order to keep up with the events surrounding us. There are some events in life which can feel predestined, as if this is something which was going to happen no matter what we did. It was our fate, our destiny. A little story borrowed from Greek mythology, dear reader. Ancient Greek mythology, which talks of the 3 old crones,